Hi, and welcome to York Reacts. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the movie of Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to be checking out the visual effects, doing a little breakdown here, and seeing all the details that went into this movie that you might not have seen before. Now, if you are new to my channel, I'm a game developer. I've also worked on films and movies doing a previs as an animator, so hopefully I can give a cool breakdown to this to this visual effects breakdown in a unique way that you've never seen before. So let's dive in and take a look, shall we?
Kelly Port. I was the visual effects supervisor on Spider-Man No Way Home. Previously worked on Avengers Endgame.
Nice.
And prior to that,
Good
Avengers
resume.
Infinity War. And I'd love to take you through one of our big action sequences, which is the introduction to Doc Ock, the big bridge fight.
Yeah, let's dive into this.
Hello, Peter.
I'm excited.
Most of the film has some portion of visual effects. I think there's maybe 80 shots that didn't have visual effects. I wanted to start.
Wow, hold on. He said there's only 80 shots in the movie that didn't have visual effects. That means like almost every shot in the movie had visual. Oh, man.
The sequence on this particular shot, because this, when you look at it, this is exactly one of those shots that doesn't seem like a visual effects shot.
No.
But it absolutely is. This set here was built in Atlanta.
Oh, see? Okay.
We had just this door right
Look
here,
at
the
that.
steps and the door. In that particular
it.
case, we had to extend all of this area on the left and right of that. So that's a really common practice, what we call just set extension, but it includes all the little details that come along with it. Digital animated leaves that maybe blow in the wind and things like that. That's just one of the first shots. We had this traffic that we're going to be needing to be continuous with. When we shot the aerial, looked nothing like that. So of course, we had to replace all of this traffic on here with cars. We actually had to move this tower. And by the way, not only did we have to move the tower is under renovation. So it had all this scaffolding on it.
Wow, yeah,
we didn't remove the scaffolding. We just made a CG tower. So you've got a whole bunch of mix and match of
And that's
digital.
hard to do. Yeah, see that? Because you got to replace all the stuff next to the tower too and make it look real from the other backplate footage. So this other stuff that's kind of right next to the tower, you need to kind of merge in perfectly as well.
Move the scaffolding. We just made a CG tower. So
yeah, watch this really quick.
You've got a whole bunch of mix and match of digital. And
yeah, see, they're replacing even the stuff over here and around here because they have to, because of the edges of where this other building was. It's really difficult to do stuff like this. I learned how to do it in a compositing class.
So this is sort of one of those hybrid plates. So here's Spider-Man flying, looking for the Assistant Vice Chancellor. So what we ended up calling her is AVC, just for shorthand. He's flying in. At one point, just to talk about different kinds of previs and versions of that.
All right, so he's talking about previs. Now, if you look at what we're looking at right now on the screen, this is what I've done before at Halon Entertainment. I worked on the Batman movie, and what we do is we basically create the whole movie, big chunks of it in 3D, and we animated it with the Unreal Engine, all that stuff, and we try to make it look as best as we can, and then we give that to the main developer and the people that are making the movie, like Sony or whoever, and then they kind of copy it and recreate it in, you know, the really good technology and the, you know, making it look photoreal.
All sorts of things like that that we were just exploring. But, you know, as part of trimming the sequence, he's just now flying there, and then you see him land.
Nice.
This piece was actually built. A lot of these things that were actually built end up getting replaced, whether it's to add detail, or if it needs to be cleaner or dirtier, or if his animation changes and it makes it easier to remove Tom. He's on wires, he lands,
And usually, okay, they're gonna, whatever the actor is interacting with, you know, see how Tom Holland is putting his hand on this object and he's putting his feet on this object. Now, when you have an actor interacting with something, you usually want to include that into the video footage, but just add on top of it, you know, weathering and details or whatnot, or put something that's the exact same but in 3D.
Called rotomation, which is your frame by frame matching what Tom's doing, what his action and performance.
And if you saw that, he's talking about rotoscoping the animation. They didn't do that. They did their own animation. They only took a tiny piece of him going like that and using like that as as their animation reference, right? Because if you look at this, Tom, slow-mo. So if you look at him, when he comes down and goes to land on this, they're only using, boom, that piece, because the other part of it looks weird. He's on ropes, right? He's on lines. So what all they used was the ending piece of that as reference to rotoscope it and make the animation look kind of as real as possible. But like, so if you look here, look, they had to hand animate all him flying in, doing this. Woo. Only part they did was right here when he does that little settle. Really cool. Interesting they call it rotomation. I've never heard that term before.
Tom does a ton of his own stunts, and this is one that he particularly did.
Cool.
And this is Tom's idea. It was really funny. Because he's wearing a suit underneath this iron spider suit that ends up getting all wrinkled. So in this particular shot, Tom Holland is wearing the wrinkly suit, and we put the iron spider suit on top of that. Because it would be easier for us to do that than having to recreate the wrinkly suit as an all-digital suit. We had this couple rows of cars, 2 rows over here and 1 row over here, and this K-rail divider
Everything
here.
else is fake.
But everything beyond that, the distant cars, the signs, all these distant buildings, the other bridge,
even tell, man.
all of that was blue screen
that.
and would have to be extended.
So
cool. What we do is just match what a physical camera was doing. We have to create a virtual camera that matches that exactly, and then we're able to put our world beyond what the blue screen was.
Now, what he's breaking down and saying there too is that what's an interesting concept is they have to match move everything. And what that means is they take the video footage that they kind of film on set, and then they find these kind of 2 points of reference of like a really dark area and a really bright area. And this is how you do matchmaking or match moving kind of thing. So in 3D tracking in a software. And what they do is they 3D track the whole plate, and then they take the camera in 3D and have it follow that. Usually that's how it's done, to get a feeling of so that your camera matches it perfectly, or you can take your environment like the background and have it just completely follow the entire back plate of what you're using, because you're kind of rotoscoping or matchmaking a point in space so that it looks kind of flawless, even though it's a different plate.
So now we're on a wide shot. There's a lot of visual effects here, but the idea is that you don't really see them. It's like, oh yeah, he's on a freeway and he's just running.
Hold on, though. I can tell it's fake right here. Everything to the left of this freeway is fake. A bunch of stuff to the right. You can really tell, actually. The stuff on the left looks 3D for sure.
This could easily have been shot had we been in New York and locked off that bridge. You know, it's a lot of money to lock off of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, I would imagine. God, yeah. Obviously, some of this is what was filmed. I think it was something like this.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about that is that we have to, again, extend all that environment out, create digital cars on the left, the surrounding environment. Peter running, in this case, is all digital as well. Really? Some of that was based on motion capture. Okay. Some of it's keyframe animated by hand. We changed signs.
I'm really surprised that
this says JFK Airport, but
I'm really surprised that they would hand animate some of the stuff of a human being running through traffic.
But that's not actually what it says there. But since the AVC is theoretically headed to the airport, like everything is like really accurate in terms of the signage and things like that. But we sometimes need to introduce things that say, oh yes, she's going to the airport, because we just said that. A lot of these scenes, these little vignettes as he's passing from car to car, the dog, the 2 kids, were actually just ideas that came up with, that the guys came up with in the previs. As we get closer and closer to shooting, that previs becomes a template for how we shoot. And so this happened to be one of those shots, the dog barking. We had a bunch of other ones that were just not used, but...
So I want to touch on something. This is what I did on the Batman movie. So what's cool is that a lot of these directors that make the movie, the director of Spider-Man No Way Home or the director Matt Reeves on the Batman, for example, they don't know how every single shot in the movie is going to play out exactly the way it's going to look. And, they have a vision and whatnot, but they leave a lot of artistic vision and creativity up to the artists like myself and a bunch of animators out there who do previs animation. So if you look, in the previs process, you can come up with a bunch of different ideas like they did here. Like in traffic, they thought, ooh, wouldn't it be a cool idea if as he's walking by, a dog comes barking outside the window and scares him, right? Oh, what's another idea? Well, maybe there's two people making out in the back seat. That was one of them, remember? And then what's another idea? Maybe two kids are watching him on the iPad, currently, live news feed and whatnot, right? So all of these things are ideas that the animator will come up with. And it's stuff that, the director has ideas, but also a lot of times the animator and a person like myself will come up with an idea. Like, for example, on the Batman movie, I came up with a whole bunch of ideas and the way the scene plays out, everything down to how the camera moves and every single thing, where the people are positioned, how long they're there, how many cameras cut, how long the camera sits there. It's like you're a mini director yourself and you're presenting the whole scene in 3D. So what happens is they try to replicate it as much as possible because they already kind of plan out this movie in 3D. That's what previs is all about. So if you don't know what previs is, that's kind of just a quick glimpse of kind of what I do and a lot of other animators do to help a movie kind of come to full production, because they don't want to spend millions of dollars on, exploding cars all over the city or something if it doesn't look cool. So they'll just explode the cars in 3D first and like put it in there and see if it feels really cool, and if it does, they'll go in real life and like shoot the action footage and blow up the cars. Just like this. See? They came up with the idea. It's really neat. This is what I do for a living. It's so fun to have an input on some of these movies. Like, it was a dream of mine to have some creative input on the Batman movie. And then to see the director, Matt Reeves, shoot the movie just like my animation was, almost frame by frame, like matching it. If you look at these two frames, they look really, really similar. And that's because they plan out this whole movie usually in 3D. Because a lot of times you're not going to, you see this right here, you're not going to get ideas that get passed by Sony. Sometimes you come up with an idea of these people making out in the background, and it's just a funny idea. You pitch it to Sony and their digital domain up here, and they go, I don't know, nah, never mind. And that's who looks like did the previs, is digital domain. You can see kind of up there on the top left corner. But previs is very important to the whole creative process of making these movies and you enjoying them. So it's, like I said, it's really cool to be a part of that. Let's dive back in and hear what he's got to say.
This was actually a very tricky thing. We had all sorts of reflections. We had camera reflections, flags, the blue screens, all sorts of things like that we basically have to remove them and then add in the correct ones. That happens a lot. Peter
little stuff you don't even see and notice.
He's pulled on wires. We transition that into an Iron Spider suit. We get our reference of the Iron Spider bust. We have a gray ball, a silver ball.
Automation again.
We do something called HDRI. The Iron Spider suit, we need to light that in a similar way as everything else in the scene was lit. Otherwise, it won't fit in.
This is an old video game technique, too, that they use or to make stuff look... When you are doing compositing and you want you film video footage of something and then you want that 3D character to look real in there. A long time ago, the oldest method of doing this was to get a chrome sphere and get that chrome ball and put it in the environment and take pictures of that chrome ball, and then you would use that chrome ball as like this huge sphere in the environment, and then you would put your 3D character in there and it would reflect all the stuff. It's a really, really cool technique that a guy came up with a long time ago. It's very, very, very cool to get stuff to look realistic in a video plate footage. Great stuff. Glad that they touched on that.
So we put a camera. It's just a digital SLR camera. You do highly bracketed photos all the way from where the exposure is pure white to pure black. And what you're left with is the relative range of light. So you're able to use that image-based lighting in a way to sort of help augment how we light characters that need to be integrated into a photographed or live action world. So this shot, I think, if you count up all the different versions of it, I think this one shot had over 1,000 different versions, of which I probably saw a couple hundred.
Hello, Peter.
One thing that's important to know for both Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe, we did do some de-aging because they're coming from an older timeline. So that was a process that we had to do on every single shot of Willem
Wow,
Dafoe
look at the
and every single shot of
difference.
Alfred Molina. For all these kinds of shots, we had to certainly do hours and hours of research. We would take the Spider-Man 2 specifically for Doc Ock, cut all of his shots together, study them. We even had animators that worked on the previous film, so they had a real good sense of how he moved.
Brilliant. That is such a good idea. What he said is he had animators from the previous movies work on this movie as well. And that's a really good idea. Bring back in the guys that know what they're doing and are really capable of doing these animations in a realistic way because they've done it already. Great work. I'm so stoked to see that and hear what he just said right there. Hell yeah. Props to that guy.
And it was so great talking to him on set, Alfred Molina. When they had shot that, they had some physical arms that they could play with, but they also were digital as well. So it was a combination of arms that were puppeteered, and some of them were all digital. In our case, they were all digital. Let's take a look at Doc Ock's arms. This is a perfect example
He's
of
in Maya right now.
the rigging and animation departments. What the rigging department essentially does is responsible for creating the controls for the animators to use. They're able to take the controls that the rigging department has given them, the joints, how detailed of a control do you want, where those controls are, how easy they are to use.
And you know what? These animation controls look really, really good. And he was talking about how easy they are to use and whatnot. You have to have the better the animation controls, the easier it is to kind of animate this whole thing. And sometimes really complex animations can be very difficult because of the way they're rigged or set up. But if they're rigged really well, they can be easy to animate.
Use how intuitive they are, and that feeds into the animation department, who's responsible for creating the animation.
All he's doing is turning one thing, and
it's a very simple version.
other stuff is
it's
interacting.
a lightweight version of the character, and then this gets translated obviously into a much higher res photorealistic version. As we get into this sequence where you've got Doc Ock's 4 tentacles, Iron Spider legs, and so it's this crazy, almost swashbuckling sword fight. Conceptually, a section like a beat of the sequence like this, where it's the arm fight.
Let's go back and look at that animation, okay? And if you look at this animation, see, somebody has animated this inside Maya first. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is the previs part. And this is what I end up doing for my job, is kind of animating something like this right before the movie. And this is really fun to do. You can explore different concepts and ideas. And it's really fun to kind of do that as an animator because you don't get a chance to do that usually inside, normal productions.
What was really special is that we knew that this film was going to be big. I don't know if we knew it was going to be this big.
Of course you did.
But we just really enjoyed the process. And what was really fascinating and special, at least to me, and I know a lot of people that worked on the film, is just being able to go on that opening weekend. I took my kids to the opening weekend, and just sitting there, I don't know how many times I've seen this film, but like sitting with an audience that's just crazy about the film, and hearing their reaction to these kind of special moments, whether they're tearful or surprising or they're jokes and everyone's laughing. We created this thing in the middle of COVID, and this is one of the first films where people are actually going to theaters and watching this thing. It was more than we could ever hope for, and it was just wonderful.
A lot of times us developers and people that work on these movies, it's such a cool experience when you finally get to see the movie out in public. You finally get to see the people play the game. When I worked on doing previs for the for the Batman movie, I was so excited to go with my brother down to that movie and watch it because I was curious to see what was going to really be in the movie. Because I worked on the movie like 3 years prior to that, right? And so I remember what I did, but I wasn't sure what they were going to do in the movie. And Matt Reeves really copied all my animations like frame by frame, just like you saw in here. So it was such a cool experience to see that kind of on the screen and seeing people interact with that. And Wow. Hope you guys enjoyed this trailer, or not this trailer, but this kind of breakdown, this visual effects breakdown of Spider-Man No Way Home. I really did. I love geeking out about this stuff. If you did too, I have some other trailer, or not, I keep saying trailer because it's all I do on my dang channel. But anyway, I have another visual effects breakdown that I would highly suggest that you look at here. So take a look at it, enjoy, take some coffee, some sandwich, whatever, because these are long videos. This is some stuff that you deep dive. You go in. This is not something to just watch on your phone and peace out on my video, right? Sit back, relax, and really deep dive into this stuff and have a good time. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.